Hello and welcome back to another episode of What's the Deal? On this episode, I am joined by Morgan Thomas, our Leasing Director here, and today we're going to cover everything about the UK buyers at the moment entering the market. There's been certain key events over the last month or so that have really ignited the fuse for British buyers entering the UAE market. Morgan, welcome to an episode of What's the Deal? It's good to have you.
I think this is the first one that you and I have ever done, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, no, we haven't done one before.
You've done a couple with other people.
Yeah,
so
well, this is a dream team.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we're obviously seeing a huge amount of interest coming from the UK at the moment. Hence why you've taken the position as leasing director.
Correct.
Currently, we're seeing a lot of British families from the start of the school year recently moving over and looking at some of the, should we say, the more affluent communities, the villas, and putting roots down for long-term plans here.
Yeah, correct. I mean, as Jack said, it's not a secret that Brits are loving Dubai at the moment. I think the reason being is geographical proximity to the UK. We're only 7 hours flight, give or take, from most major cities in the UK. The weather, the weather's quite grey and miserable most of the time, but yeah, and I think it's also now more the economic situation because, look, it's not a secret. Since the general election, it was held on July 6th. There's been a change in government. And as a result, I saw a stat, actually, correct me if I'm wrong, 7,000 millionaires who called the UK home have now left.
9,500
a year. Okay, even higher then. But
and then 6,700 have been absorbed into the UAE market.
Yeah, and then the others have gone like the US and Singapore and all that. But the UAE is the one that has really, really stood out the most out of that. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of Brits at the moment. They're looking to rent, they're looking to buy. I mean, we're getting a lot of people who are wanting to rent to start with, mostly just to get their feet on the ground so they can find areas that they actually like to go to in the first instance. And like, okay, well, look, once we're settled, once we're established, then we will take the next step and then end up buying. As well, what you'll find is that a lot of people, they need to qualify for the mortgage in the first place. They need to have at least 6 months worth of wage slips from a company, or if they have a business, then 2 years worth of receipts from that as well. So
very good point. Yeah. So some of the key areas of focus for us is obviously Jumeirah Gulf Estates. We have an office up there. Dubai Hills Estate, Arabian Ranches. Some of the more, should we say, appealing communities to Europeans that want that mature feel of home. That's what they're always attracted to.
Al Gaff as well, actually. I'll chat that in there. We're seeing a lot of Brits that have ended up in there too.
So yeah, and really, why is that? It's purely because of the schools, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's take Talal Al Gaff, Jumeirah Gulf Estates. You've got GEMS, you've got all of these schools. I mean, Arabian Ranches, you've got JES. There are some very, very good British curriculum schools that are in the general proximity.
And RGS in Talal?
Yeah, say Royal Guildford, GEMS, as I mentioned just a moment ago. So yeah, there's quite a few schools that are in around that do follow that. And even in DIP, they've got a few schools that follow the British curriculum. So even if you want to head a little bit further south, Al Fajan direction, Green Community as well, then yeah, you have the schooling input there too.
Now, it's hard to comprehend this, but for a lot of people that might be watching this, maybe who are in the UK looking at relocating, the villas typically range in some of those communities from around 100 to 150,000 pounds rent per year. However, it is not a secret that we have a lot of people with a lot of money moving over here, and 150,000 pounds rent for the first year is not. Isn't a big amount of money when they're looking at 4, 5, 6 million pounds to purchase in 12 months from now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And as well, one other thing to take into account is all the income you make is tax-free. So that figure as well, I mean, let's look at the UK. If you earn about, I think it's £145,000 at the moment, it's currently at 45% tax levy, which I'm sure is probably going to go up in the next few weeks as well. So before you even begin, 45% of your money you're waving bye-bye to HMRC, whereas here, if you earn that, that's gross to you, or net to you, actually. So it's a net figure that comes out. So that money goes a lot further here. So that number, although, as Jack said, it looks a scary number, ultimately, when you do take into account the fact it is tax-free, it becomes a lot more affordable for a lot more families. So I would say with that in mind is that, yeah, the numbers are big, but it's all relative because the earnings are higher. The quality of life generally is higher. So it's a swing and a roundabout.
Yeah, I agree. So look, with the change in government, everything that we're seeing with the riots in the UK at the moment, the guys cruising around on those motorbikes, snatching people's phones in London, it's not really painting a very good picture for the UK, and especially with the government's changes, especially towards landlords in the United Kingdom. We had the change where there was you can't actually evict anyone now, so this non-eviction rule. Previously, it was for 2 months for a non-reason eviction. Now it has to be 3 months. In the UK, if somebody doesn't pay their rent to a landlord for 3 months, they can take them to court. If somebody doesn't pay the rent for 2 months, they can't take them to court. So a landlord's loss of earnings, I know there's insurance policies in place to bolster the fact that if anybody doesn't pay rent, but still, you've got to go to court and then actually dispute the reason and prove to a court that somebody hasn't paid you rent before you can even evict them. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and for good measure, you've got to pay tax on that as well. So, I mean, of all the rental income you have is, if I said, it goes on the threshold for the income tax for the rentals. So if you have a rental income that exceeds £13,000, then you're paying 20% tax on that in the first place. Now, as I said, we're not here to poo-poo the UK, by the way. It's home to Jack and myself, as you can probably hear with the accents. We do love the UK. We are, of course, concerned about the direction of travel with some things that are going on. But Jack and I have made Dubai our homes because, as I said, geographically it's close. It's a lot safer. Most of the year the weather's better as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this. Rent or buy, it's irrelevant, effectively.
And look, realistically now, your entry level price point for a good apartment, let's say it's an off-plan investment or a purchase here, you're looking at around £350,000. That is more, well, probably the equivalent to a nice one-bedroom apartment in Manchester.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, let's even come a bit further down south, because you're a bit further north than me.
I'm north
right on the south coast. So, I mean, the property prices there. But let's take the capital. Let's look at London. What is the entry price in London? If I wanted to buy an SW1, 2, or 3 right now, what do you think the median is around there for let's say one bed apartment?
Zone 1, I would probably say 550, 600.
Yeah.
And that's dependent on how close it is to a tube station.
Yep.
You're not going to get a view for that.
No.
And then you look as a similar comparison. You've got something on the beach in Emaar beachfront here. Great for short-term rentals.
Yep.
It's on a man-made island. You've got super yachts outside your window, and obviously, like you say, it's a high capital appreciation area that will only benefit in the future. London, I think, anyway, for investors, it's always going to be this safe haven.
Of course.
Zone 1's already ran. Kind of Zone 3 now and outwards is where the real growth is there in London. But in Dubai, we're seeing that, but we're not 45 minutes an hour out of the city here.
Yeah, sure.
New communities are 20 minutes outside and they're still affordable. And they've got the space to make these radical improvements from the get-go. It's a blank canvas.
I'm going to be controversial here. When it comes down to places like downtown and the marina, they are the equivalent of SW1, SW2 in London, right? If you buy a property so basically, for those who aren't familiar, you've got Burj Khalifa, which is kind of the epicenter of Dubai. You've got Burj Khalifa, then you've got the ring that kind of comes around. That's basically Dubai's SW1. That property, 20 years' time, this city is growing. They've got a 2040 master plan that's coming across here. The population, what's the aim of the population? By 2040, what do they want population? It's about 6-7 million?
Yeah.
So when it comes down to these numbers here, is that if the population keeps going up, and of course, as Jack said, it's going to eventually, you're going to start pushing out very slowly. However, this becomes prime real estate. Emaar, who is 90% of downtown, has good build quality. Everyone wants to move it. It's great for the short-term rents, great for long-term rents. It's basically the creme de la creme if you're looking for city urban life that's coming about. So I would say that could be potentially, because look, imagine if we had a time machine. I wish I could have sometimes, but we had a time machine. We went back to the mid-90s, and I said to you, Jack, buy something in SW1 in 1994, 1995. You've probably gone, market, maybe not, all of that.
Look, it's proof of concept. Yeah, proof of concept, and it happens in any city, especially one that is expanding at the rate that Dubai is. Anything that has a finite amount of plots now or land, they're the places to be buying. A couple of areas for me in particular is Palm Jumeirah, a great example. We're just finishing that island now. Port de la Mer, great. Blue Waters has gone through that cycle. Any islands or key areas like downtown DIFC where there isn't any ability to build anymore, that is where you need to be putting your money.
When I always tell people demand supply, and the bigger the gap is between them, the much more likely it is that you're going to make money in real estate. Buy something that everyone wants that never comes available. That is a great example of that. So that's a huge thing that you should always be looking at when you are investing. So for our British investors out there, if you are seriously considering to buy, then use that as a good metric. Buy something everyone wants that's never available. If you're an investor, obviously if you're an end user, there's certain things that will come into that. But for an investment property, I don't know if you agree or not, but I think that's a very good metric as to how you should look at that.
Absolutely. And look, when you're relocating here, you want to visit all of the communities which are in close proximity to a British curriculum school, or a British curriculum, sorry. So get in touch with us here at Edwards and Towers. We have a couple of offices across Dubai. We have a good understanding of where the Brits are and why they're there in terms of the community offering. Morgan's obviously heading up the leasing team at the moment, and we have lots of agents that can help with some of the really exciting new villas that we have coming to market. But yeah, thank you again for watching another episode of What's the Deal? My name's Jack from Edwards and Towers, and I'll see you again on another one.